2022 was a big year for the North American rail industry, with countless exciting news stories. Today, instead of this month on the railroad, we'll be counting down the top 10 most exciting railroad news stories from this year on the railroad. Number 10. Metra's passenger SD70s. Chicago Commuter Rail Metra is infamous for using a wide variety of vintage locomotives across its fleet, but in October it took delivery to a one-of-a-kind locomotive that's both modern and antiquated at the same time. Rebuilt from a 6-axle locomotive formerly used to haul freight, the Progress Rail SD70 MACH is Metra's first quote-unquote new locomotive in almost 20 years. At one point, 6-axle passenger locomotives were commonplace on the North American Railroad, but nowadays, 6 axles are used almost exclusively for freight. While their design is pretty bare bones and utilitarian, the SD70s are surprisingly the most environmentally friendly locomotives on Metra's fleet. With the majority of the fleet complying with EPA Tier 1 diesel emissions at best, the SD70 MACH's Tier 3 compliance is certainly a step in the right direction. Simply put, the SD70 MACHs are very unique locomotives, and that's why they're the 10th entry on this list. Number 9. America's first hydrogen fuel cell passenger trains. A few months ago in September, the world's largest rail transportation trade show, InnoTrans, took place in Berlin, Germany, where quite a few rail modernization projects were announced. Perhaps the most exciting, though, were related to alternative fuels. Swiss rail equipment manufacturer Stadler unveiled its first ever hydrogen-powered train, a fuel cell Flirt ZEMU. This train will be the first of its kind in America, and it's projected to enter service on the Arrow Commuter Rail in California in 2024. In addition to the unveiling of this innovative piece of equipment, the California Department of Transportation placed an order for 4 similar trains, with options to buy as many as 25 in the future. While at this point it's unknown where these trains will be used, the most likely scenario is that they'll be used on the Altamont Corridor Express's Merced extension when they're delivered in late 2026. For now, this entry stays at number 9, although alternative fuel trains, as much as I think they're worse than electrification, are certainly bound to be in the news quite a bit in the coming years. Number 8. Amtrak ALC-42s enter service. Amtrak is the national passenger railroad of the United States, so it's always a big deal when it gets new equipment. For the past 30 years, General Electric's Genesis series locomotives have been the backbone of Amtrak's long-distance fleet, although in early 2022, their long-overdue replacement entered service. In February, a brand new Siemens ALC-42 locomotive made its maiden voyage on the Empire Builder, beginning a new era for Amtrak. These new Siemens locomotives are more efficient, faster, and create 90% fewer emissions than the outgoing locomotives. Over the course of the next few years, we'll see the aging P40s and P42s phased out in favor of these modern diesels, and soon the ALC-42 will become the official face of Amtrak. Number 7. Amtrak's new paint scheme. Closely related to the new Amtrak locomotives is their new paint scheme, which just so happened to debut on an ALC-42. Dubbed Phase 7, this colorful new scheme brings Amtrak's design language into the 2020s, doing away with silvers and grays and bringing back the bright reds and blues of older paint schemes. While the debut of the ALC-42 only affects the long-distance routes, Phase 7 will eventually be seen system-wide. Number 6. CSX acquires Pan Am Railways. Pan Am Railways is, or should I say was, one of America's largest regional freight railroads. Just one day after the official debut of Amtrak's Phase 7 paint scheme, the Surface Transportation Board approved CSX's merger with Pan Am Railways, adding 1,800 miles of trackage across New England to CSX's system. The CSX-Pan Am deal was easily the biggest railroad merger of 2022, and now that CSX has formally taken over the former Pan Am Railways, freight customers in New England have easier access to CSX's 20,000-mile network. Number 5. Canadian Pacific's hydrogen locomotive. Way back in the beginning of 2022, Canadian Pacific completed the first of 3 hydrogen-powered freight locomotives, the first of their kind in North America. This engine, classified as an H2OEL, was rebuilt from an SD40-2F, but now runs off a zero-emissions hydrogen fuel cell. Once again, I don't think that hydrogen is a worthy replacement for traditional electrification, but nonetheless, the H2OEL is the first of its kind and thus worth mentioning here. Next year, 2 more units will join the existing engine, and CP will begin testing them in mainline service. Number 4. Amtrak Aerotrain renderings. Just a few days ago, Amtrak broke some of the biggest news of the year just a few weeks before 2023. In mid-December, Amtrak revealed renderings of trains that will replace 40% of its fleet beginning in 2026. This multi-billion-dollar investment in new equipment is one of the biggest investments in the railroad's history, and these new Siemens Aero trains will be significantly better for the environment, comfortable for passengers, and reliable. For more information, watch my video about these new train sets in the top right corner. Number 3. Texas Central Eminent Domain Ruling. In June, Texas Central, a future high-speed rail service between Dallas and Houston, was deemed a legitimate railroad and thus given the power to use eminent domain. In more simple terms, this will allow them to more easily buy out private property in order to build their line. After years of land disputes, Texas Central can finally acquire most of the land needed in order to complete this line. While this was just one court decision, this not only creates a precedent for future high-speed rail projects, but it's also a huge step forward for Texas Central, which may begin construction in 2023. Number 2. GO Transit Modernization. In April, Metrolinx, the governing body of GO Transit, Toronto's commuter rail, finalized their GO Expansion project, which plans to transform the fourth largest commuter rail on the continent into a modern, electrified, frequent commuter rail service. This megaproject is projected to cost more than $13 billion, and by 2030, a large portion of the GO network will be electrified, with trains running every 15 minutes or better. To date, the GO Expansion is one of the largest railroad modernization projects in recent history, and eventually, when this project is completed, GO will be the gold standard for North American railroad modernization. Before we get to the number 1 biggest news story of 2022, let's see a few more honorable mentions that could have made the list. In February, the first Siemens Venture cars entered service on state-supported Amtrak Midwest routes. While this only directly impacts the Midwest, similar cars will eventually enter service on a few other state corridors in addition to the aforementioned system-wide usage. In August, the Reading Blue Mountain and Northern Railroad ran their first steam doubleheader in over 30 years with 2102 and 425. I was lucky enough to be in the area when it happened, and it was pretty cool to see. Finally, towards the end of the year, railroad workers' unions were calling for a national rail strike, although it was later called off by President Biden. Unfortunately, rail workers' unions still haven't gotten paid sick days and improved working conditions, so there will most likely be another strike in the near future. If it does happen, which it most likely will, this will affect everyone, shutting down the supply chain and wreaking havoc on the economy. So hopefully, rail workers will finally get their paid sick leave before they have to go on strike. And now for number 1, zero-emissions railroads. In late 2021, Union Pacific, the largest railroad in North America, committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2045. Following this huge commitment, in September of 2022, Amtrak committed to doing the same by 2050. Presumably, this means that Amtrak will electrify their system, or unfortunately maybe implement battery electric trains, all within the next 30 years. While I'm certainly skeptical of both of these railroads' commitments, I definitely hope they can pull this off. In addition to the obvious effects of going zero emissions for Amtrak and Union Pacific, perhaps this will motivate other railroads around the country to do the same. Of course, as I said, these railroads may try and cut costs using battery or hydrogen locomotives, which I don't support, but if they realize that these things don't work, this could be the first signs of nationwide railroad electrification, which would be a massive upgrade from what we have now. Overall, the 2020s have proved to be a very interesting time for the railroad, and certainly one full of news. So with that said, stay tuned for the December 2022 episode of This Month on the Railroad, coming in just a couple weeks.